So today we're looking at the Yamaha R3. I've had the bike for about 3 months now. I thought I'd do a proper review of the bike from an owner's perspective, kind of from a first-time rider's perspective too. Also kind of wanted to do a review of what I thought of the bike, what a beginner might think of the bike, what beginners might think of motorcycles in general.
That's a good looking bike.
So I'll talk a little bit about my background as far as before I got into motorcycling. I used to be a really big car guy. I had a 2003 350Z. It was the model with the Brembo brakes. It was a really, really fun car. I did an exhaust to it, plenum spacer, all that fun stuff. I had a really fun time with it. So I had to sell that though, because I was in college at the time, couldn't really afford it. Kind of made a mistake with that. So I decided I had to do something. I was like, no, I gotta get back into the game. I gotta get back into owning something fun. And motorcycles were always there. When I had the 350, I always eyeballed motorcycles, and I'll never forget my first experience with a leader bike. Not riding it, mind you. I was gratuitously passed by a leader bike in my 350. It was from a stoplight, and I looked over. I was like, "Oh yeah, it's a motorcycle. Let's fucking go, dude." And then he didn't even know I was going. I was flat out in the 350, and he had no idea that I was even going. It looked like I wasn't even moving. From that moment on, I was like, wow, motorcycles are really cool. Everything about them is awesome. So what are some of the things that pop out to you immediately whenever you first get on a bike? You definitely are not prepared coming from a car background. You're not prepared for how immediate a motorcycle is. Even the baby 250s, even the little guys. Because in a car, you can be riding around, and I used to do this in the 350 a lot, and you just kind of like poke the throttle a little bit, and you kind of feel the torque, you feel how good the car feels. Like, yeah, you're feeling good. You're kind of riding around. On a motorcycle, everything has to be deliberate and very smooth. All of your inputs, all of your controls, they gotta be smooth as butter, or else you'll fucking kill yourself. Or drop the bike, or both, or I don't know, who gives a shit, right? Just such a tactile machine, and everything about it is so instant. And that was a big change from cars anyways, because a car, as connected as a car can feel. I've driven 350s, Miatas. I hear like Lotus Elise obviously is like the lightest, one of the lightest, more capable cars. Like you feel really connected to it. It just doesn't even compare with a motorcycle. So you kind of have to readjust your brain. You literally have the engine right under you, and you gotta just like rewire your brain with how dangerous of an activity you're doing is. And trust me, when you first start out, it feels fast as hell. Even the 250 in the parking lot, I would just like rip on the throttle, and I was like, my god, this is a 250, what the fuck? This is pretty quick. Obviously, as time goes on and you ride on the street, it doesn't really feel that fast anymore, but at first, it'll really shock you if you kind of pin the throttle. It's like, wow, I am moving on this little guy. All motorcycles, really, they all feel so good and so connected. Now, as far as the R3, this particular platform, right? Because that's what you kind of have to look at motorcycling as. It's like, whenever you pick your first bike, it's kind of a platform for you to learn on, right? You want to develop your skills as a rider. You want to make sure that you can really exploit what a machine has to offer. You want to be a competent rider. You want to be a good rider, right? So the R3 is my first bike. I don't really have any complaints. I don't really feel like it's underpowered for the street. I definitely have heard some things about that, about like the 250s. I really wouldn't know, because this is a 320. It honestly does make quite a bit of a difference when you're talking about these smaller bikes, whether it's like a 250 versus a 300 versus a 320 versus a 390, like the Dukes or the RC 390s. It makes a big difference, because the relative jumps in power from a 250 to like a 390, it's almost literally double the horsepower, right? I think a 250 puts out like 24, 25 horsepower. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. And then, whoa. Yeah, don't fucking do, what the fuck are you doing? You'll definitely feel that push, that difference in torque and power. All bikes, I mean, all those bikes are suitable for a beginner. You're not really gonna, you really have to be fucking retarded to kill yourself or really fuck up on a 250, 300 class motorcycle. You really have to try pretty hard. I've done some stupid mistakes on this bike, and everything's been kosher. I've not done anything irreparably to destroy it or whatever, but you gotta really try to fuck up. Back to the R3. I feel like okay, and this may sound kind of contradictory because I own the bike, but I feel like if your goal is to go from a 300 to a 600 class bike, because you want the super sport, you want to have an R6 or a 675 or an 899 or a 636, you want to explore that avenue of your life, and I totally get that because I do too. The R3 might not be the best option, honestly, because if you're just looking for a pump and dump kind of bike, you're not really looking for something that's going to last you a while. The R3 is really not the best choice. It's kind of overpriced for its segment. You can pick up, not overpriced for its segment rather, if you're comparing new to new, it's priced the same as the 300, but because it just came out this year, you can't really pick one up on the used market. I've seen a couple, but they're priced, I don't want to know what happened to those bikes. I wouldn't buy one personally. That's my opinion. And there's a reason why I bought a new bike, and I'll get to that too. But if your goal is to just go to, let me shift here. If your goal is to just go to a 600 after owning a 300 for like 6 months to a year, a riding season, if you will, R3 is not really a good option. You're much better off buying like a CBR 300F. What the hell am I saying? A CB 300F. You know what I'm talking about? The naked Honda with the 300, a Ninja 300, any just little starter bike just to dick around on, and just do that for a little bit, and then feel like you got your nuts on you, and then go get a 600. If that's really the what you want to do, right? Personally, I didn't feel like going that route. I thought it would be much more cogent for me to buy a nice new bike. I really didn't want a used bike. I wanted a brand new bike. Personal preference. For me, it made more sense because I didn't want. I wanted some life out of the bike, you know. And I've always been the type of guy. And this really comes down to personal rider preference. And maybe if you come from a car background, you'll understand this too. I've always liked squeezing out little engines than not really using a big one. I don't know why. It's just always been more fun to me. Not to say that squeezing a big engine isn't fun either. I've driven my buddy's Mustang, his 2013, his 5.0. This is a really fun car, lots of torque. The 350, honestly, was a really fast car. Not really fast, it was pretty fast. It's the quarter in like 14. This wasn't a rocket ship by any means. It was a torquey car, it was a fun car. But it's always been more fun to me to take something like that and just really explore what it can do and really push it and feel like you're doing something with it. And I felt like the R3 was a good balance between that, right? Where it's definitely a bike where you can pick it up and dump it later and get a 600 class bike, or you can keep it for a while and see what it can do, you know? There's no shame in owning it for a while and exploring what the bike can do and having fun with it, you know? There's really no shame. As far as the actual bike itself goes, it's fun. I mean, it's my first motorcycle and I really have no complaints about it. It does everything I want a motorcycle to do. It doesn't really, it scoots through traffic all right. The fuel economy on it's really good. I always keep it on the average fuel economy. I'm seeing I'm getting about 86 or so right now, 84. The only gripe I have, and this is like, I've just recently developed this gripe, mind you. The only gripe I have is the fact that on the highway, because I live in Texas and people drive a little bit faster on the highways, you're a little bit crazier, to be honest. The bike feels a little lethargic from the 80 to 100 range, because you're literally in 6th gear just revving the piss out of it, wanting it to go somewhere. So it's not happiest in that range by far. No, it's not. That's the only gripe I have with it. I wish it had a little more top-end pull for that reason. A little more torque, maybe. I feel like if I could have bought like a used RC390, I probably would have done that, but at the time when I was buying my bike, there weren't even any available in my area. I think there were a couple that were brand new, but they were $1,000 more than the R3, and I was like, I don't really see the point in doing that. It's a very forgiving bike. I don't know if all 300 class bikes are like this, but it's very, very forgiving. It doesn't come with ABS, which I have had to brake a couple times pretty hard and not really run into any issues. Oh, this is fun. Let's go 5 miles an hour. It's got a very relaxed position. It's not a very committed motorcycle. It's not a very steep angle motorcycle. You're not really laid out. In short, it's a really friendly little bike. It's a friendly little starter bike that you can just tool around on and have a really great time with. Do I regret getting it? No, I don't regret getting it at all. I wish I could have gotten a slightly better deal on it. It's from a new rider's perspective, so take it for what you will. if you're committed to understanding motorcycles and understanding how to ride them, the R3 is a great tool for it, I think. It gives you enough power to have fun with. It has all the right hardware. Unless you truly feel that a 300 class bike isn't really an option for you because you want a quote-unquote real bike, if you really feel like you want to get a bigger machine because you just don't want to get bored so easily, which I hate that term. Why is this guy, what are you doing, buddy? Yeah, the whole getting bored thing, I really feel like those guys aren't really riding their bikes, to be honest. I feel like they learned how to go in a straight line, shift, and they're like, oh, I'm bored now. These are the same guys that can't downshift for a corner. It's the same guys that don't really understand body position, have not really took the time to learn how to ride. If you're like me and you want a more tame bike to just kind of learn on, to feel like how a sports bike is going to feel, you're really getting into how to go fast on a bike, I would recommend the 300 class bikes. You have the other camp which says, oh, get a 650, you're going to be bored. I don't know. I have a ton of fun with my bike. I don't really know what you're doing with yours that you're having so little fun with it. So yeah, do I recommend the R3 for beginner? Fuck yes. It's a really, really fun bike.